More shakeup is coming here at ESPN as Mark Jackson appears to be headed out the door. ESPN succession plan hiring Doc Rivers, laying off Mark Jackson, and promoting Doris Burke. Now we've heard, we've been hearing for a while that Doris Burke was going to be replaced, promoted up to the NBA Finals crew. I mean, we've been hearing about that for the last couple of months, especially after the Van Gundy was let go. They was talking about Doris Burke being promoted. But now it seems that Mark Jackson is completely out at ESPN. Jackson joins Jeff Van Gundy in being laid off by ESPN after the two had been Mike Bream's co-analysts on the NBA Finals. They're expected to be replaced by Doris Burke and Doc Rivers. Wow. In the wake of the Van Gundy layoff last month, ESPN set its eyes on making Burke the first woman TV analyst on the NBA Finals and hiring Rivers to join Hall of Fame play-by-play Mike Bream. The deals are not finalized, but are quickly moving in that direction. So, ESPN was looking to keep Jackson as part of the B team with Mark Jones. However, network executives really like J.J. Redick and Richard Jefferson as game analysts and are keen on assigning them better games. That left Jackson in potential the third team, even though ESPN doesn't make specific declarations. So they was going to not only take Mark Jackson off the first team, they wanted to put him on a third team. That's a demotion. I mean, that might be the biggest demotion of all time. And all this to satisfy the guys up at ESG. Because we know that while they wanted to get a woman in that spot, right? They wanted to get a woman in that spot. And Doc Rivers is a safe bet so they can balance out the replacing of Mark Jackson. Because Doc seems to be, I think in the eyes of most people, they look at Mark Jackson as kind of, Doc Rivers as a similar type of guy as Mark Jackson. Don't know that to be for sure because I don't know Doc Rivers' background, but we know that Mark Jackson was his beliefs and the stuff that he believed in does not match the direction that ESPN is going culturally, right? With the ESG and the LGBT mafia and all that other crazy gay stuff that they're starting to get behind. That wouldn't fall in the direction with Mark Jackson's beliefs. Now, I don't know if Doc Rivers, what he believes or not, but I think Doc is a little bit more tolerant. But at the same time, he appears to be like Mark Jackson. But I think people who are close to these guys know that these guys are really nothing alike. But on the outside, to the average fan, Doc may seem kind of like Mark Jackson. But I don't think most people understand Mark Jackson's belief background, right? He, kind of the reason why I think he got fired or replaced in San Francisco as a Golden State Warriors head coach was because his cultural style did not fit the direction of the Golden State Warriors, who play at ground zero for the LGBT, right? They're one of the first LGBT supporting teams when it comes to, I think then they hire a gay coach at one point. I think they hired Collins, one of the Collins brothers who was openly gay. They had him on as assistant coach. And obviously San Francisco is the gay hub of America. And you could tell, like, in the long term, Mark Jackson was not going to be the long-term solution there. And I think that played a part on why he got let go. But no one talks about that. So here, I think ESPN is now understanding they're losing a lot of viewers. They're losing money. Disney is in charge here. They say, hey, we're losing money. We need to fall in line with this woke agenda, ESG score. We need to make sure we can still capitalize on these funds because we can't get no one to watch any of the sports. So we had to save face. And to shake things up, they fire everybody. And you notice all the people who are getting fired, it's typically people who are really not behind this woke agenda, right? If you notice, they're not really behind it. They haven't come out against it, but they're not fully 100% behind it. Like they're not out with it. And ESPN wants people who's going to be in front of it. Either have a position, meaning that you need to support it, and you need to say you support it, not just being neutral. So they want the people who's going to be on the front lines. They want those people to be the supporters of this agenda. And if you don't want to support it, you can still be with us, but you can't speak out against it or have any views that goes against what the people upstairs want. So I think that's where Mark Jackson hit the fell out on that. So let's finish reading this article. Yeah, because the promoter guy Van Gundy, Jackson, and Breen was a pretty good trio. So, and honestly, I don't think Mark Jackson would have worked pretty well with Mark Jones, who's ultra woke, right? Right? You know what I'm saying? I don't think that would have worked out. So I think the J.J. Redick and the Richard Jefferson is probably going to be a better second team with Mark Jones from what the company's doing. I'm saying not from a basketball standpoint. I don't know. I just think that, it seemed like Mark Jackson had a good relationship with Van Gundy. Obviously, he played for Van Gundy, and they know each other a long time. But I think Mark Jackson's on the outside in because they usher in a new generation of athlete. And Doc Rivers is old school. I think Doc Rivers, honestly, is just going to be a placeholder while they have Doris Burke there. And then once they realize, okay, Doris is okay, she's holding her own, then I think they replace Doc and they probably promote either J.J. Redick or someone else. Maybe they have another person in mind that will get promoted at some point. But they're going to try out Doc. I think Doc is the placeholder. He's there because to make it seem like the move is okay. Because you're replacing Van Gundy and Mark Jackson. So you want to bring a coach in as a replacement, as with Doris Burke. So, but I don't think Doc is going to be there for the long haul. I think he's just a placeholder until they find someone else later on. Because Doc has that voice that's like, I don't think that's going to work long term on as the first team. In my opinion, I don't know. I could be wrong. But let's see what else we got here. And they say here that ESPN has increasingly came to the realization that Jackson's effectiveness was tied to Van Gundy. So they think Jackson can't hold his own without Jeff Van Gundy. Now, I think that, is there some truth to that? It could be, but we'll never know because Van Gundy and Jackson already had a chemistry. They knew each other. So, of course, that's going to work out. But we will never know if, I could see that being true. I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing to say. But we'll never know how good Jackson could be because you're removing them all together, right? So, I mean, there might be some truth to that. Without Van Gundy, ESPN didn't think Jackson would offer as much. He only had 2 years remaining on the contract. Jackson confirmed the news of his departure according to Peter Vessi's Twitter account. Former Knicks coach was a victim of ESPN's talent layoffs, while Van Gundy was one of the best game analysts in sports. Top ESPN executives were weary of his desire to coach again. Van Gundy was also critical of the NBA and its officiating, which the NBA expressed disappointment over years, and even this season, according to sources. However, there is no evidence of the edict from the NBA to make a change. Look, yeah, Van Gundy was very critical of the officiating, but he wasn't the only one. Speaking of critical officiating, I've heard Doris Burke on ESPN radio be critical of the officiating at times, even during the playoffs. I was listening to her one time on radio. So I don't know if, now Well, maybe on radio you can be. It's not a big deal because no one's really watching. Maybe she'll change and she won't be. But Doris Burke has been critical of the officials on radio. I've heard her. While ESPN could have simply put Burke in for Van Gundy, there was a strong feeling that the combination of Jackson and Burke would not have the same chemistry. That's true. Jackson and Van Gundy, like I said, they have a history. They know each other. They work together. They had a long time. And I don't think Burke and Van Gundy, Jackson would have worked out either. I don't think that would have been a great combo. Unlike Van Gundy, Burke and Rivers are popular at the league offices. The league has always been a fan of Rivers and the broadcast booth. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Rivers he's been doing stuff a while. I mean, back in the days, Rivers, they like Rivers, but it's going to be about what the fans are going to tolerate from Doc Rivers, right? And I don't know. I mean, Doc Rivers doesn't sound the same as he did back in the days when he first was doing this. And will the fans want to put up with listening to Doris Burke and Doc Rivers? And that combination with a Mike Bream, I just don't know. Honestly, I don't think that's going to be great. In 2004, Rivers teamed with Al Michaels on the NBA Finals. Michaels has told a story of then Commissioner calling Rivers up and informing Rivers he was taking a job with ABC ESPN. Yeah, Rivers is liked by the media. He has many relationships, I still think Rivers is a placeholder. I think he's subbing in for another person who could come in later. That's what I believe. Honestly. I mean, Rivers doesn't really have a great broadcasting voice. He just doesn't. And that's going to be the thing. People are going to be annoyed by that over time. With Rivers and like Van Gundy, ESPN faces the possibility he could return to coaching. Yeah, that's another thing, possibility too. Doc Rivers could get back in coaching, which would go back to my original point of he being a placeholder, because I think if he gets a call to coach, he'll run at it. He'll take the job. He was a candidate for the Phoenix Suns job. And Rivers is going to chill probably for a year or two. He's getting paid $16 million over the next 2 years from the Sixers after they fired him this offseason. So Rivers will take a step back, and the first job that opens up, or first couple of jobs to open up, I think Doc Rivers gets a call. He's probably going to be one of the most available coaches, out there. So, and the good thing about Rivers is that he just came off a coaching job. So that's why I think that's another attraction to the first team crews. Like, this is a coach who just coached last year recently. So it allows them to have, like, I guess, a current stuff, language, whatever. I don't know. But like I said, I think Doc is there. I give him 1-2 years tops, and he's gone. Not that he's going to get fired. I'm just saying he'll be gone from, like, maybe he'll get another coaching job, or he'll decide, I don't want to do it. He's not going to be there for the long haul like Van Gundy. That's just my opinion, of course. So, let's talk about... So, Jackson's out, right? And it's interesting. Now, we went through the article that was from the New York Post on why this might have happened. And I really believe that Mark Jackson is, like, they wanted to demote this guy all the way down to third team. They really believe that this guy has nothing without Van Gundy, which is kind of sad, right? It's like Mark Jackson coached in the NBA. He played in the NBA. Why would his success be tied to Van Gundy? That's kind of messed up for ESPN to even consider. Like, dude, you're not good without Van Gundy? Now, whether that's true or not, we don't know, because he hasn't really had the chance to prove that, right? But, damn. Tell us how you really feel, ESPN. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, let me know what you guys think about this whole fiasco at ESPN as the layoffs continue and the reshuffling of the deck as they get more woke and they promote Doris Burke, who I think Doris Burke is solid. I know people have their issues with her. she was pretty decent to me on radio when I listened to her on NBA playoffs. I think she did NBA finals on radio with I forgot the two people, but it was pretty good. I don't know. I think Burke is pretty good. Also, like Hubie Brown. Hubie Brown's pretty good. They get you in depth. Like Hubie Brown gives you that in depth analysis in the middle of the game and stuff. I think that's pretty valuable. So we'll see. We will see. Let us know what you think about this sports page run by sports fans. Peace.